Hello to all my old friends and all my new friends. This is Mary from Sophisticakes by Mary, and for this tutorial, I'm going to do this green slime inspired isomalt bowl topper on this Halloween themed sprinkle and buttercream palette knife cake. So hold tight and we'll get right to it. First things first, we need to make the topper. And what I'm doing is I'm just using I bought this on Amazon. It's isomalt crystals, and I'm just following the directions on the package. You add some water to the crystals. Now I'm doing this at the studio, and the water in that town is not the best, and it turns kind of yellow. So I make sure to use purified bottled water. That just kind of solves the problem for me. And once I have that melted to the correct temperature that, like I said, will be on the package, I use my infrared thermometer. And then I'm just take it off the heat and I tap the air bubbles out. I had added some of the neon green gel food coloring right after I took it off of the heat so that it doesn't change the color of the green. So you just pour that on your mat and you just kind of move it around a little bit and let it sit for a little bit until it's moving not as fluidly. Otherwise, it's going to run right off of your mat. And I'm using a silicone mat, and I placed it on, it's a glass, upside down, and form your bowl on the silicone mat with your, any tool you want to pinch the silicone together. I'm just using those chip clips. And then you just put it to the side and let it cool. And I went ahead and made two, since I had enough of the isomalt. And I like to make two of things because you never know. I like to have a safety net. And I like to have choices. So if I do two and they both survive, then I have the option to choose which one I want. And if I do two and one breaks, well, then I have a backup. And here I'm showing you how, if you have a spot that you don't like, now you're supposed to be wearing heat-resistant gloves. I know that. I'm just stubborn, bullheaded, and I've done this enough times that I kind of know how to keep my hands out of the way. But use some heat-proof gloves if you are not used to it. And you can, once it has set up just a little bit, you can cut off those drips that have overrun and remove those. And then I am doing a concrete buttercream technique. I didn't want to do just plain white, and I didn't want to do Halloween colors, and I love the concrete technique, and I thought that would be a nice neutral background for the rest of the decorations that was still interesting and kind of goes with, Halloween, tombstone, concrete, whatever, however you want to look at it. I just kind of wanted to do that this time. And what I'm doing is I'm using a fairly pale gray buttercream. I use black food coloring gel in my buttercream and add just a tiny bit of yellow, just a tiny bit, to neutralize any blue or purple undertones that might happen with your black food coloring, and that happens a lot. Now, just don't make too much, add too much color, because this, I'm going to add to it. And I'm just doing my normal application for my buttercream, and that was water that I sprayed on it to help smooth out the buttercream. But don't worry too much about, honestly, if you have air bubbles, that just kind of adds to the concrete look, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. If you haven't seen me do any concrete cakes before, you'll see what I'm talking about here. So I'm just going ahead and smoothing it as best I can, especially on the top, and I'm getting that crisp corner because I love crisp corners. And then after I have, this goes round and round and round. I just sped this up so you see the whole process just quickly, instead of editing out some of the turns around on the turntable. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of patience that comes with cake decorating, and especially when you are a perfectionist like I tend to be. But once you've got this where you want it, you'll go ahead and put it in your freezer for a good, I'd say 20 minutes. Because of the next technique, you want a nice firm buttercream. And here I've taken it back out of the freezer. And what I'm doing here is I'm just using my palette knife and I'm creating texture. I'm just creating lines and little dots. And that'll make sense again in a second here. You can add as much or as little of this as you want. And you can use other tools too. You can make bigger divots. You can use like a wire brush that's just dedicated for cake decorating and really add a lot of little speckle marks. You can do that. I just didn't have one, otherwise I would have. And these are the two colors of gray that I'm adding. They're not a lot different. Just one is deeper than the other, and they're different than the base color. I started with that base color and then I added a little bit more to each one of those. And just apply this to your cake. You don't need a thick coat, because what you're basically doing, and then you're scraping it off. What you're basically doing is getting that buttercream to settle in all those little indentations and pot marks that you made. That's why the air bubbles don't matter. That just adds to it. And you're going to remove most of it. You just want it to be just an effect. And after a while, you get to the point where you've removed the excess. You have a little bit extra on your scraper that settles on it when you turn it. Go ahead and leave it, and you can kind of redistribute that buttercream around a little bit, like I'm doing right there. Go in different directions to make it look more organic. And I could have removed more if I wanted to, or less. It's up to your personal taste. And now I'm adding the spatula palette accent. I don't know what to call it. I'm just using the purple and the orange and the neon green to do this. I'm just haphazardly applying it. The background one, the first layer, like I'm doing here, is a little taller, and I wanted to gradiate it down to shorter strokes towards the outside. And I'm just removing excess because I don't want it to get too bulky around the bottom, because I'm going to add some sprinkles. And I didn't want to take away too much from the levelness of the side of the cake. And just do the same technique with all of your colors. And you don't have to do this with Halloween colors. It just happens to be Halloween time. And that was the mood I was in when I filmed this video. So we went with the Halloween colors. And I thought the green slime for the isomalt bowl was a good idea. So we're just kind of going with the Halloween theme. Now, I had a sprinkle mix. They had different sizes in it. I went ahead and I separated the bigger pieces from the smaller, because I like to do the smaller ones first, as you see me applying them there with my palette knife and my hands, and clean, dry hands. I feel like I have to state the obvious, but just so that everybody knows, my hands are clean and dry. I like to put those on first and then individually place the larger ones, because you'll find if you're trying to add sprinkles to the bottom and up the side like this, and you have large ones in there, the little ones get kind of lost. And the larger ones end up getting stuck too far into the buttercream. So I just separate those out. It only takes an extra, couple minutes to do that. And then that way you can put those larger ones where you want them. And then I added some gold ones in there too, because, me, gold. Can't not do the gold. Then we'll set that in the refrigerator while we work on pulling our isomalt slime bowls out of the silicone. Now, you'll just want to do this very carefully. I like to start from the top and kind of work your way down, and don't put too much pressure on that bowl, because they break very easily. Do little bits at a time. This is sped up. This took me a few minutes. And it was humid that day, so my isomalt it dried a little tacky. They turned out perfect, but they're a little tacky, so I did struggle with getting that silicone off of there a little bit. But once I got it off, they were perfect. In fact, you'll see that I can't quite decide which one I like better. One is taller, one is wider. So I wasn't sure, and I like the drips on the shorter one, but I like the height of the taller one. So I couldn't decide which one I liked better. So I kind of decided to go with the size of the cake. The cake was not a super tall cake, and you'll see either one of them would have worked. In fact, a little bit of isomalt remorse. Maybe I should have gone with that one, but I went with the other one because I went based off of the size of the cake. The cake was not a super tall cake, so I didn't want the bowl to overwhelm the rest of the cake. So I went with the shorter one, the wider one, and I think it turned out just perfect. So I think this is my last Halloween tutorial, and I wish you all a happy Halloween, but I will have more tutorials coming up. And I hope you like this one, and give it a go, and do whatever colors that you want to do. Go with the Halloween. Go put candy in her. Don't know why I didn't think of that. Put some candy in that bowl. That would work great. So I hope you guys have a good week, and we'll catch you next time. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.